one weekend's rain does not a drought break. And the reality is that the extended range look out the next 3 weeks, the next 3 months, says that we're likely to stay on the drier side. Don't look for any real turnaround in the drought situation in Louisiana anytime soon.
Thank you for joining us for the Louisiana Farm Bureau podcast. I'm Avery Davidson, filling in for Carl Wiggers, who's producing today because, well, we only have about 3 people here at the Farm Bureau office today. But joining us, we have Louisiana State Climatologist and my good friend Jay Grymes. And Jay, right now, it's outside a lot like your throat is right now, kind of dry.
It's very dry, although at least it's not 22, 23, 24. We're probably not going to see a drought of that degree, but certainly we're dealing with some parts of the state that are pretty parched, like my throat, if you will. And probably the worst of it right now is down in Acadiana, where they are, with the U.S. Drought Monitor, actually technically in drought, moderate drought for a good bit of that part of the state.
Now let's talk a little bit about the Drought Monitor, because that's something that you contribute to. You're one of the reporting agencies. How is that put together?
Well, right now, what we've done at LSU and GOSEP is we've put together a team of experts. So that team includes a couple of people from LSU, led by Kyle Bray. And Kyle is kind of the ringleader for this full team. So we've got some LDAF people, Ag and Forestry people, and then each of the National Weather Service offices that serve Louisiana are invited to participate. 2 of them participate regularly, and the other 2 offices are sort of more hit and miss. But what that gives us is a core of about 6 people that can talk about the vagaries of the environment out there and the moisture characteristics. And we've talked about this before, drought is definable in different ways. A lot of it has to do with what your focus is. So we can have hydrologic drought, which is mainly just a lack of surface water. Of course, for your listeners and viewers, it's mainly agricultural drought, and that's what we focus on largely. But there are different kinds of drought, and with this drought monitor, you're trying to juggle all those pieces and come up with a single number. So it requires a team effort, and sometimes there's a little bit of debate going on, but we've done a pretty good job, I think, and then we coordinate our thoughts with the national authors who put out the drought monitor on Thursday mornings.
Right now, we're recording this on Tuesday, October 21st. So there's still some rain in the forecast this coming weekend. Sorry, Tigers and Jags fans, you might get a little rained out. But we are still pretty dry out there. I was speaking earlier with Ryan Yerby, who farms over there in Grant Parish, and he says, where he is with those sandy soils, he's always just 7 days away from a drought. Is that sort of what we're seeing here, where we're not getting the timely rains that we need?
Well, and that's a big part of it, is that even though we've been getting some decent rains, they're just spread out. There's too much dry time in between them. And we had a couple of showers the past weekend. They were not all that effective. So, in fact, I do expect when we put out the drought monitor on Thursday, it will show some added deterioration. Now, this coming weekend, though, could be a different story. Right now, we're looking at a widespread 1 to 2 with maybe even some 3-inch bullseyes scattered across the state. That will take a tiny bite out of the drought. It'll certainly at least stop us from this sort of drought free fall. But the question then becomes, one weekend's rain does not a drought break. And the reality is that the extended range look out the next 3 weeks, the next 3 months, says that we're likely to stay on the drier side and also stay maybe a little on the warmer side. That combination usually means more sunshine, which means greater rates of evaporation and evapotranspiration. So don't look for any real turnaround in the drought situation in Louisiana anytime soon. Now, as you know, and you talk to the producers out there, dryness at this time of the year has its good and bad points. The good points is getting in the harvest. The fields are easy to work. The sugarcane farmers are, for the most part, pretty happy with it right now because they're getting in and out without tracking out the mud. You get into North Louisiana, it's a little bit more of a two-sided coin there. Again, harvesting is going well. Question is fall and winter planting. When the soil is this dry, the seed just doesn't take. So those folks are waiting for a little moisture to get things back in shape. And then you've also got the whole pasture issue, which is a livestock requirement. And for most of the state, pastures are probably in fair to poor conditions. So they too need a decent couple of rounds of soaking to get things back going. And then when we get to the hydrologic drought, you look at some of the ponds and the stream flow in North Louisiana, and you realize things are really dry up there.
Well, then when you look at the Mississippi River Valley, how you take it out to the national level, I mean, we have barges that are having to decrease their draft because of the levels in the Mississippi River. Are you looking into your climatological crystal ball and seeing anything changing there?
Well, one of the things I like to remind people in Louisiana, rainfall in Louisiana has nothing to do with the Mississippi River. Lots of people know that, but most of them say, wait a minute, it runs right through the state. How does it not impact the Mississippi? Well, we've got these two mountains called levees on each side of the river, especially the lower portion of the river. None of the rain that falls in Louisiana, except what falls on the river, stays in the river. So what we have to look at is farther to the north, particularly the Ohio Valley. And right now, not a lot of good news coming out of the Ohio Valley. So the low flow on the Mississippi, the saltwater wedge, is continuing to move north. Of course, the Corps is already putting in the sill for the 5th consecutive year. That's never happened before. So what we are seeing with the Mississippi flow is an impact that is partly a climatological shift, maybe not global warming, maybe not climate change, but certainly climate variability on a shorter scale, coupled with the fact that the Mississippi River is no longer a natural river. You've got reservoirs on, for example, the Tennessee, the Cumberland rivers, including some diversion of water flow in the Ohio. So when you start looking at the flow on the Mississippi, you've got to not just look at how much rain fell, but who's holding it and who's letting it flow. And then we also got to remember here in Louisiana, halfway through the state, we shunt 30% of that flow into the Atchafalaya Basin. So the river is no longer natural by any stretch, and that creates a problem for the lower portion of the river in terms of that extra low flow.
Well, let's talk about the other lack of rainfall we had this year, and I'm going to knock on a little wood up here on my head, and we have yet to have any kind of tropical system really make any kind of impact in the Gulf. Did we even have one form in the Gulf this year?
We did have
early on, I think, if I remember.
Yeah. Right. We had Tropical Storm Barry, which went into Mexico. We didn't even so much as create a ripple on the waves for the central Gulf Coast. And the reality is that I would say go ahead and put your money down. We're done. Historically, there's never been a landfall west of Mississippi after the 1st of November. So we're, a week and a half away from that. There's nothing out there over the next 5 to 7 days. So now we're 3 days. It's not going to happen. We made it through a year without an impact. And yeah, you can go ahead and knock on this wood. We're done for the season, I think.
What led to that? What did you see in terms of the weather patterns that pretty much put up a shield over Louisiana and the Gulf Coast? Well,
going tropical free in Louisiana is not as rare as you might think. But given the last 20 years, we've become hypersensitive. So this year, probably the principal driver, because keep in mind, Melissa, which is now in the Caribbean, that's the Caribbean's first storm this year. Mm-hmm. So the Gulf and the Caribbean have been uncharacteristically quiet. And the biggest reason for that is that the storm numbers are probably going to come in right at about average. But most of those storms stayed out in the open Atlantic because of high pressure in the Atlantic being contracted to the east, pulled more towards Europe than towards the United States. Now, the storms have to ride around that dome of high pressure. But when that high pressure dome is shifted eastward, it gives the storms the opportunity to turn north sooner. And if you think about and look at the storm tracks for the season, that's been the rule. I mean, it's not that we didn't have Cat 5s. We had 2 of those. It's not that we haven't had hurricanes. We've had 4 or 5 of those. But it's that they've all stayed in the open Atlantic, exactly where they belong.
Oh, yeah. They seem to follow that track where they either just missed Bermuda or went to the east of Bermuda. That was, I don't recall, at least in my, I'd say since 1992, when I started really paying attention. Thank you, Hurricane Andrew.
There you go.
That's when I really started to pay attention to what was happening with storms. I don't remember another year like this. I've always remembered it, at least one little tropical system, even if it was just a small storm that didn't pack much of a wallop, but gave us a little soaking and a little wind, an excuse for me to go out and sit on the back porch and enjoy it because that's the kind of guy I am. But, that this is the first year in which and maybe it's just, like you said, we're hypersensitive to it now. Ever since 2005, we're all kind of shell-shocked.
That's exactly it. I mean, a lot of people, I bring this up, they forget that we went from 2013 to 2016 without a hit. Now, that's been 10 years, so there's a reminder there. But a lot of it, I think, is just our hypersensitivity. That coupled with the fact, and I try and put a soft warning to people out there, don't let social media drive your life. And there are people, and I don't think that they're nefarious, but there are people that just post tropical stuff from June 1 to the end of the season. They're going to find something to put there. And if you're picking up your device, it's going to pop up because you've already said, I want to see what this person or that person has to say. So we're not only hypersensitive because of the rough run of years we've had, but it's in our face in ways that never was before. In the old days, for you and me, and even as a state climatologist, I didn't really worry about it unless there was something in the Gulf. Well, now, with a different role as a state climatologist and a different focus, I start watching them as soon as they come off the African coast. And I'm one of those people that when they look like there's any potential of getting to the United States, I'll start posting it. I'm usually a little behind some of those more aggressive people, especially the ones that like to post 10-day forecasts.
Oh, yeah.
But the problem is that many people out there don't look closely and go, wait a minute, that's 10 days away. Do I really need to worry about this? And the answer is, of course not, because there's about a 50-50 chance that thing's going to go poof between now and day 0. But no doubt about it, I think that just everyone along the central Gulf Coast is hyper-primed and concerned. So, look, let's just enjoy the quiet year.
So have we sort of become, I've got 2 questions to ask after that. So have we sort of become a victim of our own successes in that we've gotten better at predicting storm and storm development and storm track, that you can now look at a wave coming off of Africa and know that it has a 30% chance of development? I mean, again, back in 1992, We wouldn't have known a thing, man. Ignorance is bliss.
Well, we didn't track them with such detail and such veracity. The other thing I like to remind people, though, is 30% chance of development means what?
70% chance it doesn't.
Right. And so make sure you look at that number and take it in up here. I mean, when you start seeing 50 and 60, that's when you want to ease up to the front of your chair and say, okay. But you want to look at 50 and 60 that's somewhere in the neighborhood. 50 and 60 out in the open Atlantic, who cares? Go enjoy a good meal and worry about it 2, 3, 4 days from now if it continues to move west. I think we are a victim of some of our successes, and this is no time for the discussion, but the successes now are boiling over with AI, because AI is a whole new meteorological tool. And in fact, now there are AI-driven long-range forecasts, and they're pretty darn good.
Are they?
Yeah. So, that's why I've got to get my time in now before some laptop puts me off into the pasture we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, meet our new state climatologist, Skynet, right?
Or Dell.
So the other question I was going to ask is based off of, some of these quote unquote keyboard warriors who are posting things that are designed to generate clicks and hype. One computer model does not a forecast make. Am I correct in saying that? Because, you might have 40 runs of the GFS that give 40 different, but it's the ensemble. It's going to be what you put together from all of those runs that drive us to a forecast. So should I question if somebody says, look at this one model?
Well, I always question. I mean, let's face it. If I can't get tomorrow's forecast in Baton Rouge correct every day, which it can't, then how am I going to be accurate with a 5 or 7 day hurricane forecast? Which, by the way, we don't have nearly the observational data out in the open water that we do with a storm system that's typically moving from west to east across the United States. So there's still some big holes in the successes there. And that's why people need to let their foot off the accelerator a little bit. And you also have to remember that these posters, these folks that are putting stuff out there, whether they're focusing on one model or even multiple models, there's a bit of profiteering going on there. Every click is some money. And some of these weather posters are clearing 30 and 40 grand a year by posting stuff out there in the real world. And I know a couple of them, so this isn't just making this up. And in fact, it makes me wonder, what kind of an idiot am I not to be doing it? And I'm just not comfortable with that. But yeah, there's a profit motive here as well. And so as soon as something shows up at day 8, 9, and 10, I promise you, one of those folks is going to put it out there because they're going to get the clicks, they're going to get the heat, they're going to get the money. And again, I don't think they do it in a mean or nefarious way, but my question is, what's the real driver here? I mean, they say, well, we're just trying to alert people. You're trying to alert people from a storm that's 3,000 miles away?
Yeah.
I don't buy it.
Well, let's talk about another success. And that is, I brought up about your dry throat earlier, but there's a reason why you sound that way right now. You just successfully beat throat cancer.
That's right, and I appreciate you bringing that up. So yeah, I was diagnosed in the spring. The treatment began in June. It was 6 weeks of chemo and radiation, and here we are in late October. And earlier this month, I got the word that it's all gone.
Thank God.
So it's all clear. But what I'm dealing with now, and one of the descriptors, and I think it's appropriate, was that radiation is like going out in the sun every day for 6 weeks without sunblock and standing in your front yard. So I basically sunburned my throat to get rid of the mass. And so a lot of the tissue in there, it's not damaged, it's just swollen. And so that's really what you're hearing is a lot of it swollen tissue around my voice box that will get better, and it's just a matter of how long it'll take. There are some other little fallout issues. You see me grabbing the water. Dry mouth, just bone dry. In fact, at night, I end up getting up 2-3 times a night just to get a sip of water to moisten my mouth, because it is just like somebody stuck a sponge in there. But bottom line, everything's good. And so I'm going to take this second to tell everybody out there, I went and got checked for what I thought was sinus drip. It turned out to be cancer.
Wow.
Now, not everybody's going to have cancer, but if you've got a problem out there, and this goes especially for the guys and especially for the older guys who just keep chalking everything up to old age, just go get it checked. Go get it taken care of. Go get it looked at. Chances are it's nothing, but in some instances, it might be something. And the sooner you check it out, the more you have a better chance of getting on top of it.
And for lack of a better way to put it, I know a lot of hard-headed farmers who may not always be the best at taking care of themselves. This is a good reminder.
It is, and you know, this is not about me. This is actually about you out there. It's about you doing the smart thing, getting yourself ready, getting yourself healthy, and getting that little problem checked, not just for you, but for your family too. Because by the way, you're the one who's going to be on that John Deere tomorrow. Well, you got to be healthy to do it.
Absolutely. Well, Jay, we're glad that you're healthy. We're glad that you were able to ring the bell and join us. He is Jay Grymes, the state climatologist. We thank you so much for joining us for the Louisiana Farm Bureau podcast. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend. Until next time, I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us.